But I do want to right now go to the number one team in the country who has absolutely been phenomenal so far. I'm, of course, talking about the Georgia Bulldogs. 2 weeks ago, they played Oregon on Labor Day weekend. It was an absolute bloodbath in Atlanta. Final score 49-3. But that was on a neutral field. We didn't know how good Oregon was. They take care of Samford last week at home. And Georgia had a second intriguing matchup early in the season. It came against South Carolina in Columbia, a rivalry that the last couple of years hasn't been all that competitive, but South Carolina, Georgia, they recruit a lot of the same guys. Like there's a lot of kind of overlap with those programs. A lot of people thought it could be close. Georgia was a 24-point favorite. There's no way they should be favored by that much at home. Instead, Georgia absolutely obliterated South Carolina like they absolutely obliterated Oregon a few weeks ago. And it's raised an interesting conversation in college football. Is this year's Georgia team, the 2022 team, actually better than the one that won the national championship last year? I'm not quite ready to go there. I do think it's a fascinating conversation, though. First of all, Saturday was just, it was domination, and there was nothing that South Carolina really did wrong other than having inferior talent like everybody else outside of maybe 1 to 2 teams does. That's not a South Carolina thing. That's very much a Georgia thing. But my goodness, did they jump on them early and never let up. Georgia led 14-0 after the first quarter. They led 24-0 at halftime. They led 45-0 after 3 quarters. By then, the starters were long gone. And what I would tell you is if you watch the game, it was even more dominant. Georgia finishes with 547 yards of total offense. Stetson Bennett all of a sudden looking like a young Johnny Unitas or Johnny Manziel, or call him Stetson football baby, because this guy is slinging the rock all over the field. 339 yards passing, 11 yards per completion, 3 touchdowns. And the run game wasn't very much, it wasn't a snoozer either. Finished their game, the Georgia run game finished with 208 yards, 6 yards per carry, and they just absolutely overwhelmed the South Carolina Gamecocks, who were never in this game, and it was never close. And so when you factor in what they did on Saturday with what their season-long stats are, I mean, it is mind-boggling what Georgia has done so far this year, okay? So on the season, they've played 3 games now. Oregon, which, by the way, started the year in the top 15. They're still in the top 25, 49-3. Samford, 33-0 last week. And, of course, this game against South Carolina, 48-7 final score. Not great at math, but that is a grand total of outscoring your opponents by 120 total points through 3 games, 132. Let me backtrack. Let me take a deep breath because Georgia's getting me all hot and bothered here talking about it. Georgia has outscored their opponents by 120 points through 3 games. That's an average of 40 points per game through 3 games. They've outscored them 132-10 total. How about this? They've outscored their opponents 82-0 in the first half. 82-0 in the first half. I didn't even look up the through 3 quarter stats. Every point that Georgia has given up is after the third quarter, when the game has long been decided. And so what is especially impressive to me is a couple things. One, at least with the week 1 win over Oregon, I don't think Oregon's a bad team. Oregon just beat a top 15 team at home in BYU by 21 points. So Oregon might be good. I don't think South Carolina is that bad. But what I think is pretty surprising to people is how this Georgia offense has looked, right? Because last year we think about last season. We think about that historically great defense. I don't think people realize the defense has been really good this year. They've given up some yards and some points late. The offense has been, to me, what stands out the most. Did you know that right now, Georgia, the team that we said was the last, they were the last ones holding out. They didn't want to have a dynamic quarterback. They just wanted to run the ball and play defense. They have the number 6 total offense in all of college football right now. Number 6 in the country. They're averaging more yards per game than the USC Trojans, who I just talked about. They're averaging more yards per game than Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, maybe the best offensive mind in the sport. They're averaging more yards than UCLA, who's a really good offense. I know nobody watches UCLA even in their home stadium. They're a very good offense. Bama. Georgia is outpacing Bama by a mile. How about this? They're top 5 in the country in yards per play. They're averaging almost 8 yards per play, the Georgia offense is. USC is kind of on par with them, but the difference is USC needs every single one of those yards because the defense is terrible. Georgia, that's a different ball game altogether. Georgia's offense has been incredible early, and that to me is the biggest difference. Elite offense with what is an increasingly elite defense, which brings us to the question: is Georgia better than last year? I'll say this. I am not right now at this moment. I'm recording here late on the night of September 18th. You're listening on September 19th. I am not quite ready to go there yet, but I don't think it's inconceivable. What I will say, we'll get that answer eventually. What I will say, I do think there is a different aura around this Georgia team. And while I don't know if they're better or worse than last year, I do think they're playing with a confidence and a swagger that I have never seen from Georgia before. And if you know Georgia's history, it makes sense. And listen, we're going to have a lot of Georgia fans listen to this. This isn't to belittle or whatever happened. But if we've all watched Georgia through the years, we all know what they've been about. And they're kind of a program that you kind of were always just waiting for the bottom to fall out on them, right? Bad loss, weird break, this, that, the other thing. Something bad is going to happen. And even into last year, even as Georgia has elevated its program under Kirby Smart, I think there was always that thing in the back of the head of, oh, we're going to destroy Vanderbilt and we're going to destroy Auburn and Mississippi State and whoever else is on the schedule. But what happens when we get in that big game? Are we really that good? Are we paper tigers? Can we really beat the teams that we have to win that ultimate prize? To win, as my buddy Chris Plank, who calls Oklahoma Sooners games, can we win the skinny trophy? That's what Chris Plank calls it. I love it. And that was the question with Georgia. And if you looked at Georgia, even last year, even in the midst of that dominant season, I think they played and I don't think they had that confidence of, oh, we can win every game on our schedule and it doesn't matter who you put in front of us. We're going to destroy them and embarrass them. Go back to last year. Remember, Stetson Bennett last year, they didn't call plays like this for him. They were afraid Stetson Bennett was going to do something crazy and lose a game for him. Now they're letting him throw the ball all over the field. We're calling him Stetson football, baby. He's like Johnny Football. Brock Bowers, did you see that they ran a reverse for their 230-pound tight end? They are calling plays and acting like a team that is afraid of no one. And so I don't know if they're better, but to me, there is a level of confidence, a level of swag of put anyone you want in front of us. We don't care. We're going to destroy whoever you put in front of us because practice Monday through Friday is tougher than the games itself. I'll tell you a quick side story. We'll kind of wrap this segment. Years ago, when I worked at foxsports.com, I did a story on the early 2000s Miami Hurricanes teams, okay? I interviewed everybody on that roster except for a player or two. I interviewed Ed Reed, Andre Johnson, trying to remember, Vernon Carey, who was a multiple-time Pro Bowler, Frank Gore. I interviewed Clinton Portis, Phil Buchanan. I mean, first rounder, intro role. And the one thing those guys all told me was this. We had so much confidence going into Saturdays because practice Monday through Friday was a lot tougher. We knew no matter what you threw at us, we had already seen something better in practice every day. Doesn't Georgia kind of walk into the building like that right now? They walk into the building like all of the great programs of my lifetime. I'm in my 30s. I've seen really 4 great programs over an extended period of time. The early 2000s Miami Hurricanes, the mid-2000s USC Trojans, Alabama of the Nick Saban era, and now I think Georgia's about to be on that level if they're not already, where they just walk into the building and they don't even, it's not even a question of if they're going to win. Their only goal is to absolutely destroy you and embarrass you. And that to me is the highest level of football that you can achieve. So are they better than last year? I don't know. I'm not saying they aren't. I just don't know. But you look at the schedule. They don't play Alabama in the regular season. They don't play Ole Miss. They don't play, LSU isn't even very good this year. They don't play A&M, who isn't very good. Tell me who's going to get in the way of this freight train right now. I like Tennessee a lot, but they get Tennessee at home. Maybe Kentucky on the road, maybe Mississippi State on the road challenge them. But this Georgia team is great. I am not ready to say they are better, but boy, oh boy, are they really freaking good.